Going to talk about, should the Broncos go and get Alvin Kamara from the Saints? He doesn't seem very happy with the situation. Should the Broncos reunite Sean Payton with Alvin Kamara on the Broncos? And we're having our guy Brian Baldinger on the show, and it all starts now. Should there be a reunion in the Mile High City? Reunite Sean Payton with Alvin Kamara. We're going to break it down on the DNVR Broncos podcast, live from the Toyota Lounge inside the DNVR Bar, where, of course, we're powered by the your Front Range Toyota stores. And we're joined by Super Bowl 50 champ Todd Davis, Henry Chisholm. You're here behind the camera. Fellas, how we doing today?
Feeling good. Got the fro out for no reason, but I'm getting a haircut, so don't read too much into it. And yeah, let's rock.
You just want to get that out of the way.
Yeah. Let's start with that. Let's clear the air. We keep rolling.
Yeah. First thing you hear notice today.
Yep.
Very stylish guy back there.
Henry, you're rocking the Rockies even after they got absolutely shafted last night.
So terrible. Yeah, because I did the watch along.
Yeah.
And they they go up 9-2.
That's what I'm saying. They were up.
Yeah. No, they gave up 7 runs in the 9th inning. Just totally blew it.
That's just classic Rockies.
I think it's the 6th time that the Rockies have given up 5 or more runs in the 9th inning or later this season, which is the most ever in baseball. Like going back to the 1800s, nobody's ever done this before.
That is absurd. They've done a lot of things that have never been done in history.
Yeah, no, they
which
just
is
keep finding
really
new
tough
stuff.
when it
They
comes
just
to
keep finding
baseball.
a way.
Man, we laugh so we don't cry. And today, I think the Saints might be crying a little bit because Alvin Kamara last week, he attended the first 2 days of mandatory minicamp and then missed the third to send a message to the Saints that he is not happy with his contract situation. And in a similar way of Courtland Sutton has a similar contract as Alvin. As Courtland Sutton, he has like $2 million in guarantees this year, but has 2 more years on his deal with no guarantees next year. Exact same thing with Alvin. He's supposed to make, I think, $11 million this year with only a little bit of guarantees. And next year, he's supposed to make $25 million as a running back, but there's 0 guarantees, which tells me there's a 0% chance a running back is going to make $25 million on the final year of his deal. So he knows what's coming next year. He knows there's probably 1 more year with him on the Saints under this deal, and he wants the Saints to guarantee some of this money. So the Broncos and Saints are actually in a very similar position when it comes to their 2 best offensive players, arguably. Probably Kamara's their best offensive player for the Saints, and Courtland Sutton might be the Broncos' best offensive weapon as well. So both teams in a similar scenario. We've obviously broken down Sutton's situation a lot here, but does this open the door for maybe the Broncos sliding in and reuniting Alvin with Sean?
I don't know if we should. I don't know if it's... I think he's a good running back. I think it's just a good running back room that we have right now. And I think as much as he loves Sean, I think his arguments with the team are about money. I don't know if it's about his coaches. So are the Broncos willing to give up capital to get him, which we would have to do the trade for him, and also pay him once he gets here, just like we had to do with Russell Wilson? So if we're holding on to capital, everybody's on prove-it deals until we see what you can do, and we're keeping money in-house, I don't think that going out and spending money on a top-tier running back is then something that we're now... or something that we should now be doing.
Yeah, it's probably a really bad idea, but it would definitely be fun. Just looking around at some of the Saints blogs, they have him going for like a 6th round pick, which makes sense. I mean, he hasn't been himself. He's getting paid a lot of money. I would imagine that if you make it a deal where maybe over the next 3 years you wind up giving him $30 million total. Maybe it's more like $35, $36 million total. That would probably be enough, I would imagine, for an older running back.
Wait, the next 2 years?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, next 3 years. If you $12 million a year for 3 years would get it done, because that's a $2 million raise this year plus 12 and 12. So the price tag, because running backs are so cheap, isn't that crazy.
Wait, let me push back on something you just said, though.
Okay.
36 over the next 3 years?
Yeah.
He's supposed to make literally $36 million over the next 2 years.
Yeah, but he's not getting that money next year. I think
Okay.
he knows that. That's just the way they structure. I mean, it's the same thing they had with Michael Thomas, where it's like, oh, he's going to make $30 million this year. It's like, well, no, they're just going to cut him. Like that's
Right.
that he's not getting that. And I think if anything, that $22 million next year, you could probably like change the deal a little bit and say like, hey, actually your signing bonus is going to be like $20 million for the next 3 years with very low guarantees, something like that, where you just kind of tweak it as part of the extension. But more likely he just gets cut, at least at this point, because they haven't been able to figure out a deal. But yeah, I mean, it should definitely be tempting, because like I think the Broncos have enough running backs, they have enough receivers, but they don't have like a game-changing player, and Alvin Kamara immediately could show up and do that for them.
I'm so conflicted just because I think there's so many different angles to look at this and be convinced that they should, convinced that they shouldn't. And one of them is what exactly Henry just said. Like, if you're giving me an opportunity to immediately add one of the most explosive playmakers in the NFL on the team, especially on a team that just doesn't really have one of those guys right now, how can you pass that up? Then you throw in that it might just be for a 6th round pick. It's like, this is an absolute no-brainer. Broncos should have done this yesterday. But then on the other side, you look, and he's about to be 29 years old this year. He turns 29 in July, and at least from an outside perspective, people always say running backs are done when they're 30. Do you agree with that, Todd?
I would say not necessarily, but I would say the stats may show that it's probably
Yeah.
true.
So
Yeah.
then you're getting him for 1 or 2 years, maybe. And then, as Henry said, you are going to have to change his deal because he's not happy with his deal right now. So you're going to have to offer him some other deal that pays him into his 30s. That might be something to caution at. And then you look at Alvin over the past couple of years, and his productivity has certainly gone down. So then if you look at it just from that perspective, do you really want to pay an aging running back that's about to turn 29 that has clearly seen his productivity go down? Or is that like the biggest red flag? And so I want to throw this out to you guys, and you tell me how you view this situation. Sean Payton drafted Alvin. In his first 5 seasons with Sean Payton, he made 5 Pro Bowls. He was an All-Pro, second-team All-Pro twice. Right when Sean left, Alvin hasn't made another Pro Bowl. Is it because of Sean knows how to work Alvin? Or is it because Alvin had 5 years of very intense use and now his body is kind of wearing down? And with Sean, Alvin averaged 1,500 scrimmage yards, almost 14 touchdowns per year, over a 5-year stretch, averaging 1,500 scrimmage yards and 13.5 touchdowns is nuts. 4.6 yards per carry. He averaged 75 catches, 652 receiving yards, almost 850 rushing yards, and he played in 15 games a year on average. Over these past 2 years without Sean, Alvin has averaged 1,273 scrimmage yards, so over 200 yards fewer, only 5 touchdowns per year, compared to 13.4, only 5. And instead of that 4.6 yards per carry, he's averaging 3.9 yards per carry. 66 catches, not too far off from the 75 that he did with Sean, but only 478 receiving yards compared to the 652. He's averaging 759 rushing yards per year, and he's played in 14 games. So the production has dropped off. I wouldn't say fallen off a cliff. I mean, I would still take almost 1,300 all scrimmage yards and 5 touchdowns from a Broncos offensive player, but that's not very close to what he was doing with Sean. Todd, you kind of laughed when I threw that out there. Is that because Alvin was used so much in his first 5 years and he's kind of just losing it as a player because he's had so much wear and tear? Or is it because when he's with Sean, Sean knows exactly how to use him?
Well, That's why I was laughing, because of how you are choosing
how
to
I phrased
it.
it? Oh, he knows
First
how
you
to
said
use him.
Sean knows how to work him, and then you said that he had good years with Sean, but was his body just so abused that now he can't? I said, well, that's a lot. That's a lot going on.
I'm talking football, Todd.
I definitely I feel you. But no, I definitely feel like Alvin Kamara is a fantastic athlete and a great running back. But I do feel like a lot of his success comes with Sean Payton as his offensive coordinator. Now, my thought process is everybody views Sean Payton as this offensive guru, and I do too. Mm-hmm. And if he could do it with Alvin Kamara, I feel like he doesn't necessarily have to have only Alvin Kamara to make somebody a successful running back. Mm-hmm. So if that is the case, I think we saw last year with some of the running backs and how he chose to use, some of our faster guys. He can do that still and not need Alvin Kamara in particular to be successful at running back. So I don't think that that's necessary. And if we are finding money to pay guys who are unhappy with their contract, we have one in-house. Let's solve this issue first before we go create another one.
So that's what I think some people in the Toyota chat have mentioned is, well, why not just pay Courtland Sutton? But then we have some other people in the Toyota chat that are thinking, if one team has an unhappy player and another team has an unhappy player, why don't you just swap them? So let's talk about that. If that could be an option, or if that's just ridiculous, especially player-for-player trades are very difficult to come by in the NFL. But first, I got to tell you about BetterHelp. And BetterHelp, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. I want to give a big shout-out to BetterHelp because they are about bringing therapy to you. Wherever you are, BetterHelp is entirely online, and it's a really cool way to connect people with therapy wherever you are in the world, and connecting you with the right therapist wherever they are in the world, wherever you are in the world. It's entirely online. It's a new way of therapy designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. And they have you fill out a questionnaire to get matched up with the right therapist and a licensed therapist, and then you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Really cool new way of working, especially in this new world where therapy is really being embraced a lot more, as it 100% should be. We're seeing it in sports where mental health is really being prioritized, as it finally should, and we're starting to see that in the community as well. And so if you want better health, go to betterhelp.com/DNVR to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DNVR. And if you want to become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not, visit betterhealth.com/DNVR.
Also, shout out to Toyota. We are here in the Toyota Lounge talking to the Toyota chat. There's like a little Toyota back there. Rockies also have a bunch of Toyotas out there, which is Shohei almost hit that Toyota. That's not
yes,
true.
he did.
He hit it really far, but he hit
Longest
it straight.
home run of the season, right?
Yeah, any player in baseball. Happened against the Rockies. So Toyotas are awesome, though, unlike those damn Dodgers. They have the 4Runner, which is really cool, the Tacoma. What was it, 17 different vehicles that are all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive?
Yep.
Wow, pretty crazy. 17 in honor of Todd Helton, another Rocky.
How many different hybrid vehicles do they have?
That is like 16.
Oh, dude, on the money.
Wow. Yeah, we love all of our Toyotas here. I also just love, like, sometimes during these ad breaks or when somebody talks a little bit too long, I'll just look out the window and see all the nice Toyotas drive by.
Was that a shot at me?
Yeah, I was going to say,
Who's
talking too long?
I won't name names. I won't name names. But yeah. We love our
It is a
Toyotas.
talk show, isn't it?
Oh, damn. No Toyotas still. 3 straight cars, not a Toyota.
Wow.
But we love all of them. If you need a Toyota, visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. The Auto Nation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, and official partner of, or official vehicle of DNVR.
Speaking of Toyota, the Toyota chat, some people have suggested Sutton for Kamara, straight up. Would that benefit the Broncos or hurt the Broncos offense in its entirety?
I think we have more certainty at running back than we do at wide receiver right now.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So I think we actually need wide receiver weapons more than we need like just another running back weapon.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. The Broncos do need help at receiver more than they do running back. That's why it doesn't make sense to add Alvin for just a draft pick and then add Alvin to a room with Javonte, Jaleel, Blake Watson, Audric Estime, and Samaje Perine. I think if any deal would be done, you would be moving on from one of your running backs. And, I mean, maybe if the Saints were able to pull it off like this, it would be Javonte and Courtland Sutton or something if you were going to involve Courtland. But I think a running back has to be involved here because then you would just end up cutting a running back that has value. So to me, maybe if you make this move, you're moving on from a running back, whether it's trading them to the Saints for Alvin or whether it's trading a draft pick for Alvin and then getting a draft pick in return for one of your guys. I mean, what if it's, would you do Javonte for Alvin and then also throw in a 6th-round pick?
No, just because I think you'd be overpaying. Like, I don't think you need to give him up to make the deal go through. Yeah, the price tag doesn't worry me. Like, with the depth, honestly, already you're probably cutting or trading a good running back anyway.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, whether it's Samaje or Javonte or whoever it could be. Yeah, but I'm not too worried about that aspect of it because you're just trying to get better. And if you can go add a new best running back to the group, I'm not too worried if it means that you're going to have trouble figuring out where to go with some of the other running backs toward the bottom of the list. I do think, going back to one of the things you said earlier, running backs, as they turn 30, like they kind of struggle. That's also true of receivers, but nobody really talks about it. When you look through the leading receivers last year, only one of the top 10 was 30 or older. That was Mike Evans, who turned 30 2 weeks before the season. When you look at the top 20, there's only 4 of them who were 30 or older, and that's Evans, DeAndre Hopkins, to Devontae Adams. Those 2 are both 32, and I think there was one other. So, I mean, it really gets projected on running backs more than other positions, which is kind of interesting. But I think that if you're turned off by taking a player who's like 27 or 28 now, I mean, you have Courtland Sutton, who's also 28, but nobody's really worried about his age at this point. You know, the age doesn't concern me all that much when it comes to Kamara. Like, he might not be what he was at the beginning, but you know he's still solid, and you know Sean Payton can get more out of him. Yeah. Like, he's a guaranteed 1,000 yards from scrimmage at the very least, and potentially closer to 1,500.
Yeah, and Henry, I think that's where I ultimately lean with this. And someone in the Toyota, excuse me.
What happened?
I don't know. Just getting choked up over this. Sorry for anyone listening. I tried to push through it. It just got me.
Push through
but
what?
someone I don't know. Someone in the Toyota chat said Alvin would be a luxury for this team, and the Broncos aren't in a spot to add a luxury player. What I would say, though, is this would be the nicest piece for Bo Nix to develop. And so, yeah, does Alvin take you from the 5.5 win team that Vegas projects to a Super Bowl team? No, he doesn't. But would he help you win some more games? Yes, he would. We know that Sean's about winning games. We know that Sean, the worst he's ever done, he's never rebuilt. The worst he's ever done is 7 wins. Last year when the Broncos weren't supposed to be good and they started really poorly, they still got to 8 wins. Alvin would help them get there, but also he would be the biggest help for Bo Nix. What have we talked about? What have we seen these first 5 practices that we've been able to watch? We've seen check down, running back pass, running back pass, running back pass. You'd be adding the best or second best, maybe the second best outside of Christian McCaffrey, running back out of the backfield in terms of receiver. 75 catches per year under Sean Payton is insane for Alvin, and he would instantly help Bo, he would help the offense, he would help Sean, and we know that Sean Payton has had no issue adding former Saints in the past. I think the Broncos, had like 7 or 8 former Saints on their team last year, just in Sean's first year, so I could see this being something that really entices Sean. And you know what's crazy about Alvin's contract right now? You know who the highest paid running back in the NFL is?
Christian McCaffrey.
You know how much he's making?
19 a year?
19 a year, which is wild. Just blows every other running back contract out of the water. You know who the number 2 highest paid running back in the NFL is in terms of average salary?
Saquon?
No.
Oh, is it Alvin Kamara because of the 22 next year?
It is.
There we go.
He's making
That'll do it.
$15 million per year. So it's not like he wants more money per year. He just wants more guarantees. And guarantees is something that the Broncos, they could dish out. And Sean has been very reluctant to give out new contracts to anyone on the Broncos team. Has not extended a current player on this team since he got here. But Alvin, he knows exactly who he is. In fact, when Alvin was with the Saints, they made him the highest paid running back in the NFL at that $15 million per year mark. So I just don't see really any major roadblocks here outside, of course, the Saints being like, do we really want to lose our best offensive weapon right now?
Yeah.
You're not buying it.
Yeah. I don't know. Everybody, I think they're saving money, and I think this like you said, this would be a luxury for them to go and get him. And if we were in a position to where like he was the guy that we're one piece away, I think you go do it. I think we are a couple pieces and a couple years away. So I do think by the time we got to Alvin Kamara's, the best of Alvin Kamara is probably the next 2 or 3 years. I think we're still building in 2 years. You know, we'll be in a good spot in 2 years, but I don't think we'll be a finished product. So I don't think he would be necessarily the next Super Bowl winning running back, you know, Broncos Super Bowl winning running back. I think it's going to be somebody else, even if we did bring him in this year.
So do you think it'd be more important then this year and next year when Alvin would be that number 1 to instead focus on developing Audric Estime, developing Jaleel, and seeing if Jaleel can turn into the next Alvin, or if Javonte can really take that step, and Javonte and Jaleel can be that Kamara and Mark Ingram version?
Absolutely. We're building for the future. Like, even though we
fair.
don't want to completely rebuild and have like a down year, we don't want to win 5 games, but I think we can realistically say we're probably not going to win 11 or 12 of them. So I think that we need to keep building, and everybody's proven it. Let's see what these running backs can do. If they're not who we need, then we draft somebody later on, or we go to the free agent market when we're at the win now stage. I just don't think that we go out, spend the capital, tie it up with a guy who's just a little bit older, still a fantastic player. I just don't think he'll be here when we are making the Super Bowl push either way.
That's totally
Yeah.
fair. Henry, I have a
But,
question for you. You said that you've seen a lot of Saints people say that it would be a 6th-round pick for Alvin. And to me, that's what puts it over the top. Like, the investment is so little, you absolutely do it for that. But do you know why? Because when I was trying to figure out what the price would be, I thought it was going to be much steeper. So that 6th-round pick has definitely sold me. But when Christian McCaffrey was traded from the Panthers to the 49ers 2 years ago, Christian was 27 years old. Alvin would be 29 this coming season. So 2 years older, that definitely hurts his value. But very similar players in terms of their accolades, what they bring to a team, both as a running back, as a receiver. And the 49ers got a deal for Christian, it seemed like, but they still traded a 2nd-round pick, a 3rd-round pick, and a 4th-round pick, and a 5th-round pick in order to get Christian. So I was thinking, like, man, the 2 years older discount, maybe it's 1 2nd-round pick or 1 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick or something like that. Do you have any idea why his value was so much lower than that?
Because Christian McCaffrey is one of a kind. Like, that's, I mean, he's basically a receiver. And Alvin Kamara does a bunch of stuff out of the backfield, but like Christian McCaffrey can like literally line up in the slot. And at that point, there were obviously the injury things. Had he won an MVP at that point? I'm not sure if he's ever won MVP. He's definitely gotten close, but
He hasn't.
You're just talking about a guy who's giving you 1,600, 1,700 yards per scrimmage every year. And again, when you're talking like what at this point, Alvin Kamara, you say like 2 years left where you feel probably pretty good about him. If he's 2 years older than Christian McCaffrey, that's 4 years, which is double. So while 2 years difference may not feel like a lot, it really is. I think you just think about like the scheme and all those sorts of things. I think, what was the contract situation? He had signed his new deal with the Panthers, which meant the Panthers would have already paid the signing bonus, which would have been a huge portion. And so Christian would have actually been pretty cheap, I would imagine, for the 49ers. instead of Kamara needing a new deal. So there's a bunch of different factors. Also, I think at the time people were kind of saying that might be a bit of an overpay.
An overpay.
Yeah, for giving up that much for a running back, just because how people treat running backs, which is wrong. But yeah, I mean, like just looking through some of these, Bleacher Report. This is from February because there's been it's been months of all this. Somebody put out the odds, like Bet Online, one of those had him as the second most likely player in the NFL to get traded during the draft. But Bleacher Report had him as a 7th round pick. This it's like the fan-sided Saints page put together what they called realistic trade packages, and there was like one that was a 6th round pick, one was for like a player, one was like Kamara in a 7th for a 5th, which is basically a 6th. Yeah, so there's like a bunch of those. But the big picture, I love the idea of investing in a running back because they are way underpaid at this point. They're worth so much more, especially when you look at, like, if you wind up paying Alvin Kamara $10 million a year versus Courtland Sutton, 15 a year. I like the idea of Alvin Kamara at that price tag just because I think he brings more value. The market has just shifted in such a weird way where I guess I wrote this in 2022, but in 2002, which was 20 years before, there were 2 running backs who made more money than the highest paid receiver. Emmitt Smith, Curtis Martin, both made more than Randy Moss. The franchise tag for running backs at that point, so average of the top 5 salaries, 30% higher than the franchise tag for wide receivers. So running backs were like clearly more valuable than receivers. 10 years later, they basically balanced out. The franchise tags were almost the exact same, and then 10 years after that, in 2022, franchise tag was 19.7, so basically 20 million for receivers and 10 million for running backs. So in the span of 20 years, it went from running backs clearly more valuable to wide receivers twice as valuable. And I think it just shifted too far, and there's a bunch of numbers that back that up. Like there's obviously risk in investing in a running back, but the production you get out of really good running backs is very, very valuable.
I'm curious if we've changed Todd's mind at all, but we got to hit Baldy first. So, Todd, let's see if we can change your mind. Maybe Baldy can help change your mind in the next 15 minutes to see if this is something. Let us know in the Toyota chat if you would be interested in the Broncos making this trade, or if you think, man, it just doesn't add up with the timing right now. But speaking of the Toyota chat, couple of people. I love wearing this sweatshirt because people just dap me up. They're like, man, Zach, that's such a cool sweatshirt. It's Coors Light, baby. Coors Light. Not only great beer, but really cool merch as well. And if you want to chill on a day like today where it's actually pretty chill outside, I think like 70 and cloudy, it's a day meant for drinking Coors Light. And then also, of course, this weekend, I think we get back in the 90s. You definitely need a cold beer. And if you want to reach for one, Coors Light is a beer we reach for here over at DNVR because Coors is all about chilling. It's brewed chilled. It's bottled chilled. And, of course, the mountains on the cans turn blue when it's cold. Of course, also on the bottles, they turn blue when it's cold. We've got Coors Light on our set right here. And if you want to get Coors Light delivered straight to you through Instacart, go to CoorsLight.com/DNVR, and that's going to be a way where you can get Coors delivered straight to your door. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light and get Coors Light delivered straight to your door through Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Shout out to Vestibule. You guys know that Vestibule is a way for you to buy stock in different players. If you've ever thought about that, like you can watch your favorite players ascend, and as they ascend, your bank account ascends. So I think it's definitely a win-win, and we're starting with the Denver Broncos, Baron Browning. I think he's definitely one of the players that we see that can take the next step, be a big name in the NFL. And if you're a big name in the NFL and you play outside linebacker, that means your paychecks are really big. So you can go over to Vestibule right now. Baron's IPO is live right now, and shares are available for purchase. It's limited because I think he's giving 1%, allowing fans to get in on 1% of his next contract. And 1% of, let's just say, $100 million. I don't know how much money he's going to make, but still a lot of money for you to be able to get in on. They're definitely limited, so go download the Vestibule app now and invest. I think this is really cool. I think it's awesome. I don't know how much money would have been made on my
Oh,
second
wow.
contract, but you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Probably would have been a good investment for you.
Can we go back in time and I can like buy 10% of your future earnings or something? Like
If-
I'll give you $100 or something.
If we could go back in time, like there's so many things that I'm buying. Like definitely owning a piece of Apple,
Yeah.
owning half of Tesla.
Yeah.
What
What would you say? Yeah,
That's a
I'm
lot of
doing it.
Tesla.
Of course,
I'm
yeah.
doing
You
it.
can
A lot
get
of
in.
money.
If you can get in, I'm
Yeah.
doing it.
When did you become a starter at Sacramento State?
My second year.
Okay. So
Sophomore year.
freshman year, if you'd bought the Todd Davis stock,
Probably would have.
that would have really paid off.
Yeah, it probably would have.
Wow.
It was probably penny stock at that point.
Probably.
Man, that would be. What's the best investment that you would go back and buy?
Man, I just think you can't go wrong with so many of them. I mean,
Yeah.
like you invest in any of the blue chip stock now. So if you do the Walmart, Apple, Tesla, Johnson & Johnson, I think you invest in any of those early on. Starbucks,
Oh yeah.
you buy like 30% of it for like
Oh my
$50.
goodness! There we
Yeah.
go. You know what stock I'm investing in? The Brian Ball.
there, working out every morning, bunch of guys throwing the ball around. So, I'm still kind of plugged in here, but this is a good time. Kind of take some time off, freshen up, get ready for what's going to start here in about 5 more weeks.
Baldy, did you ever get in on those workouts with the guys? You show them what's
Nah,
up?
They're animals, man. Past all that. I don't need to be injuring myself right now.
That's my excuse too. I don't want to hurt those guys, so I stay away. So Baldy, we were talking about at the start of the show how Alvin Kamara is not happy with his situation down in New Orleans with where the Broncos are at, and obviously the Sean Payton connection. Would it make sense in your mind for the Broncos to pursue or look into reuniting Sean and Alvin here in Denver?
Well, I think you can have the conversation, but, if he's going to be 29 here. I think he's going to be 29. He's had a phenomenal career, especially. But, just the statistics. Now, he's had some injuries, but, these running backs, they don't stay great forever. They decline pretty rapidly. And he looks like a declining player to me. I mean, if you brought Kamara in here, is he a rep stealer of Audric Estime, from Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Is he a rep stealer from Jaleel? I don't know what Javonte is right now. If he's fully healthy, can he have a bounce back season? He wasn't very good last year, but he was, a great rookie season. Like, you bring a guy like that in, he's a name. Everybody knows him, so you get excited. But if you really study him, everything has sort of been in decline here the last couple of seasons.
When it comes to running backs, I think a lot of people just say if you're an older running back, teams should not pay you. It's just a bad decision. When you see Alvin Kamara as a 28-year-old, is it just so simple that when you see a 28-year-old about to be 29, you just shouldn't give that running back a 8-figure contract per year regardless of how he's playing?
Well, he came in the same draft as Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey just got, the contract, but he's coming off one of the best seasons we've seen from any running back, what we just saw. There was that class of running backs, Dalvin and Aaron Jones. That was an elite class. Fournette, and of course, Sean Payton got Kamara, I think, in the 3rd round that year out of Tennessee. Just one guy right now that's at the top of that class. Aaron Jones is still a very good player. But there's one guy at the top of that class, and it's McCaffrey. But he has gone through his injuries. He's come out of it, and he's in the perfect system. So sometimes, look, the offense line has not been very good in New Orleans, no secret. They have, Ryan Ramczyk's been hurt. Left tackle was a disaster last year. Trevor Penning hasn't worked out. And so you could say, okay, well, he's a product of the offense line, and maybe he is. But there was a time when you put the ball in space with Alvin Kamara. There wasn't anybody he was either going to make miss or his balance was – his balance was like, a cat on a marble table. You couldn't get him off his feet. So, I don't know that that's the case right now.
Yeah, Baldy, we talk about Alvin Kamara, then also the timeline of when you want to go get a big name guy or a household name or somebody that can really help you get over the hump. I personally don't feel like the Broncos are there yet. I feel like we have a couple years before it's time to go get that guy that can take us to the Super Bowl after we've made, a playoff appearance or two. How far out do you think the Broncos are from really being able to say, okay, now we're in a position to win. Let's go get somebody to help us do that and really make a push to try and win it all?
Well, I think they have to get the quarterback situation established. Now, if it's Bo Nix, okay, it's Bo Nix. I mean, I don't know that. I don't know if anybody knows it yet. But I think they need to get the quarterback situation figured out this season. And then I think they need playmakers. I think they need more playmakers than they have right now. I mean, if you look at, obviously everybody's looking up at Kansas City. We know who all their guys are. And, they've had continuity at the quarterback position. The offensive line is entrenched, especially the interior three. They have their star players that they pay. Like, I don't think Denver is, I don't think they're close to that right now. I know they beat them last year. They got 5 takeaways to beat the Kansas City Chiefs and finally stop, the Mahomes domination. But I feel like if they're established quarterback away and maybe 2 or 3 playmakers, big playmakers on both sides of the ball away right now.
Baldy, you talk about how the Broncos need to figure out their quarterback situation. And going into camp, we don't know if it's going to be Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham. That competition is still in the air. But we've heard from Peyton Manning and Tom Brady take 2 completely different approaches to what young quarterbacks should do. Peyton Manning says young quarterbacks should play right away. Experience is the best thing to help these guys develop. And then Tom says, well, no. I sat behind Drew Bledsoe, and that was so beneficial. I think young quarterbacks should sit. When it comes to this debate of sit or start, where are you on this?
Well, both those guys you speak about, it's just personal experience. Peyton Manning led the league in interceptions his rookie season, 1998, and then he rebounded and had him in the playoffs the next year and learned from his mistakes. And Brady sat behind Drew, and when he got his chance, nobody ever looked back on it. So, that's personal experience. But everybody's different. Troy Aikman was 1-15 his rookie season. And, he took his lumps. He got hit a bunch, got hurt a bunch, and he got toughened because of it. David Carr was sacked 70-something times his rookie season. He said he never recovered.
Yeah.
So it really depends. It really depends. It's player to player. Every circumstance is different. Zach Wilson played a lot, right away. I don't think I don't know what he has, what he doesn't have. He's been through nothing but turmoil so far, and he's played behind terrible offensive lines. So every guy is just different right now. I want to see guys play, but I see the benefit of what Jordan Love was able to do in Green Bay and how he got his chance last year and really flourished with it. I just think it's an individual thing right now, player to player.
Changing gears a little bit, the defensive line for the Broncos, I think, has turned into one of the deeper groups on the team. When you look at DJ Jones and Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers and Malcolm Roach, even like Angelo Blackson has looked incredible during minicamp. When you see that group, because you have more of a perspective of what's going on around the league, is that a group that we should be excited about in Denver, or is it just kind of like finally living up to what other teams generally have?
No, it's a great observation, honestly, because it's the trend in this league right now. You just look around what teams are doing. They're putting the resources in their defense line. The 49ers have been doing it. The Jets have been doing it. The Eagles have been doing it. Kansas City does it. You've got to be 8 deep. It's a 17-game season. Maybe Max Crosby can play 95, 98% of the plays. Most can't, especially if you want any sort of a postseason run. And so you better be 8 deep, and you better not have a drop-off when you're rotating Baron Browning and Jared Cooper and Nick out there. And then inside, you just mentioned, Malcolm Roach is a very, very good player. Zach Allen has been a good player. But John Franklin Myers, I know from the Jets, he's kind of like in every – he's a lot like Zach Allen. He's a good pass rusher. He's a big guy that can play the run. But you've got to be 8 deep. You've got to dress 8 guys on Sunday. And when that first wave isn't in there and that second wave is in there, you can't then have the opposition go to work. The Raiders have beefed up their defensive line. Seattle has beefed up theirs. You just look across the league right now, That's where teams are spending the resources, and that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yesterday on the show, we were talking about speed, and Hank was talking how the Broncos lack speed on the defensive side of the ball. And I was saying that by them beefing up their defensive line, I think it's going to allow them to not have to be as fast, and the defensive line will take on a lot more double teams and play bully ball, and then linebackers kind of flow behind him. In your opinion, is that how you kind of see how the Broncos should attack different teams defensively with the quote-unquote lack of speed that they have in the linebacker room and I guess the safety room?
Well, I mean, the defense line can cover up a lot of weaknesses. It just can. I mean, you're not going to get as big of holes. Alex Singleton will make a lot of tackles. He always does. They're not, 2 yards at the line of scrimmage. They might be 6 yards down the field, but he'll make a lot of tackles. So you have to sometimes be a little careful about the number of statistics. But I mean, look, they are not a sideline to sideline linebacking core right now. Now, maybe Drew Sanders, I don't think we can hold out hope this year. Maybe there's some miraculous recovery to get him out on there in the field. But it's not a strong group right now. It's not a strong group the way, you look at Kansas City's inside linebacking core and just how big and fast they are, starting with Bolton. They lost Willie Gay, but, Drew Tranquil that was a free agent steal that they got last year, and he's a great player. But, not everybody has that type of speed at that position the way the 49ers do. The Eagles didn't have it last year, and it cost them. So you better be able to make up for it in one way or the other, and it can start if your defensive line can flat out just run, take care of the screen game the way they should, recognition, and then, being able to turn their hips, flip it, and chase down, the ball carrier before it gets started. All those kind of things can help a linebacking core that doesn't have elite speed.
Baldy, as Todd just did, and we've asked you a couple of times some more philosophical questions on how to approach football here. I'm going to ask you another one. Do you think it's more important for a young quarterback's development to have a good offensive line or a better offensive line or better playmakers surrounding that young quarterback?
Oh, I would say offensive line. Because the offensive line is, from a protection standpoint, you're going to have an extra tick to find an open receiver if that's what you need. You're just going to take care of certain, free hitters that come because of blitzes, and the recognition of it can really be good. I think, a great offensive line and a young quarterback is a good combination. Look, the receivers, if Sean Payton's job is to get guys open, that's on him. It's not an elite group right now. But there's enough there. We're going to see, what Troy Franklin looks like and how quickly he can assimilate into this offense. I think they're going to need him to be good this year. But I would take a strong offensive line with a young quarterback any day.
I'm curious where you stand on Mike McGlinchey at this point, because he's kind of had a roller coaster over the last few years where he put on a bunch of weight because he was getting pushed around a bit, and then tore his quad because, in part, he put on all that weight, then had to rehab for a season, and then comes to Denver and didn't play great ball. But do you think that there's more coming for him in the future, or is he kind of just what he is at this point?
Look, everybody would like Mike McGlinchey on the roster. Just from a work ethic, just a character, all those kind of things. He's a great kid, but he's limited. He's just limited. Free agency is not the designated hitter. You just can't take a guy out of a great system and plug him in and think he's just going to be a great player. He had some limitations in San Francisco, but because of the talent that they had and the way that they ran the ball and what they asked their line to do, he was a good player in that system. But, they don't run quite the same system in Denver. And so your weaknesses get magnified. And I think they have been magnified. I was surprised they gave him the money that they did. He's capable of being a starter, but I don't think he's a Pro Bowl starter. And I think he can hold down the position. I think against the elite pass rushers, and most of the elite pass rushers in the league right now are over your right tackle. If you're seeing Max Crosby twice a year, that's a handful. I just saw Joey Bosa, working out like he's going to have a bounce back season. You're in that division right now. If Chris Jones lines up out there, I would think that Sean Payton better give that right tackle some help if he decides to line up over your right tackle.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange fit too. Like you said, coming from the like outside zone type scheme that they run in San Francisco, where you get to use a guy like Mike McGlinchey out in space and let him run and use the athleticism. Whereas now you're asking a guy with a very high center of gravity to try to like anchor a running game of a lot of power and that sort of thing. That just kind of surprised me. Is there a way to compensate for that a little bit, or is it just going to be a strange fit?
Well, I mean, if you look at Sean Payton and his career in New Orleans, they went 7-10, 3 years in a row. And then they struck gold in the 2017 draft. And part of it was Ryan Ramczyk. Ryan Ramczyk came in, and he was a stud. Day one, he was a stud. Lattimore, Kamara. I mean, that draft turned that whole franchise around. Then they won the division a bunch of years in a row. But, you know, Ryan Ramczyk, I mean, he's had some injuries now, but that guy was an elite player day one. He was a battler. He could handle 3rd and 13. The pass rushers that came in, they locked him up. When you have to help out a tackle, right or left, I think it lessens some of the things that you want to do offensively.
Real quick, I wanted to get your opinion on Sean and his second year with the team. We definitely have talked to players, and it seems like he feels more comfortable. Gave guys the last day of mandatory OTAs off. You know, joking with the media now. He jokingly said that the first year he had to come in and kind of piss on all the trees, kind of marking his territory. Have you seen a more relaxed Sean Payton? Is this what everybody should expect Sean Payton to be for the rest of his tenure here at the Denver Broncos?
He can be real likable when you're winning a lot of games. You know, he can be what you want. And the players, but he's a bear. He's a bear, you know, when things aren't going well. Now, minicamp, there's no record. You know, okay, get out of here. I'll see you in 6 weeks. You know, nothing good happens after midnight. He gave him all the speeches. But he's tough. He's tough on his staff, and he's tough on his players when things aren't going well. And he's tough on himself. Like, he's not going to just throw it at other people. But winning is, you know, that's his bromide to become a more likable Sean Payton.
And Baldy, you're always winning when you join us. We really appreciate your insight. Love talking to you, and we'll hopefully catch up next week.
All right, guys. Anytime, man. I'm around. Love to do it.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Baldy. Have a great rest of your day. Man, love our conversations with Baldy there. And, yeah, we're seeing that when Sean is happy, everyone's happy.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. It's hard to be upset with practices this time of year.
No.
He was last year, though.
That is true. But I mean, that was more of a Russell thing. It's I'll believe it when they actually play games in the season and he's still happy.
I don't think he's going to be screaming at anyone on the sideline visibly.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
At least a quarterback.
Oh.
Certainly not a quarterback.
Okay.
I would bet that it doesn't happen.
He didn't do it for like 15 years with Drew Brees or Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill or Trevor Siemian or Teddy Bridgewater. He did it once.
Is that true?
And multiple times. I believe so. Yep.
Huh.
Yep. Because they did what they were supposed to do. Those quarterbacks
did.
Yep. Yep. Okay, we got some news coming down the wire right now. Did you guys hear about the Broncos bringing in a UFL pass rusher for a workout? Now, it appears if he passes his physical, the Broncos will sign Dondrea Tillman, who played with the Birmingham UFL team. And this is such an interesting one because we're not talking about like a college free agent. We're talking about someone who has played, is it semi-professional football? Is that what you say?
It's
in the
professional.
UFL? Professional?
Yeah.
A tier below, like how do you classify that?
USFL.
Yeah, okay. He's played
you're
USFL ball.
getting paid. It's professional.
Is a pass rusher, was a defensive end with Birmingham, now obviously going to be an outside linebacker, 6'3", 270 pounds, and it's being reported by our guy Chris Thomason that the Broncos, if he passes his physical, are going to sign him to a 3-year deal, only $10,000 signing bonus, so probably a vet minimum deal for him. But Todd, I just want to get your opinion. Obviously, you never played in the USFL, you never played in Canadian football, you never played in any of these leagues, but how big of a jump is that? And I guess how difficult is that to kind of project what type of player this guy can be?
I think it is difficult because it's always like hit or miss. Like he could come out and be Alex Singleton, who played in Canada, and now he's been a starter for 7 years and has had like 150 tackles a year.
Yep.
There's plenty of guys that go on to have 10-year careers coming from lower levels. So, I mean, if they found the right guy and his gameplay translates to the NFL gameplay, it could be like a match made in heaven. I always say, like, for me, I thought that the NFL was easier schematically than college, so I think that's why I played better. If he's the same way and he feels like he fits better, 6'3", 270, that's pretty prototypical DN. He should be a nice size for the NFL. I think the biggest thing for him at outside linebacker or DN is how physical is he?
Yeah.
If he can come in and be physical, I think that'll really help with him. And also, my question is, where was he at before? 6'4", 270. Like, why didn't we find this guy?
So he played Division II football.
Okay.
He was only 247 when he went to his pro day.
Okay.
So he was like an undersized guy, and he is crazy physical. Like, you go watch what he does. He just won the championship. I don't think he's ever won like defensive player of the year for the league, but he's always right up there. I know that like his PFF grades have him as the best defensive lineman in the league. Like, he is just bullying those tackles, like sending him backwards, tossing him to the side, and I think the concern coming out obviously was the size, because he was a bit of a tweener, and he still might be. Like, at 270, are you working with the outside linebackers? I would guess no. Like, I think he plays more like a defensive lineman when
Chubb
you watch him.
was 267.
Definitely. But like, when you just watch him play, he plays more like a defensive lineman, I think. So I would guess that that's where he winds up. But to me, the downside is he's a bit of a tweener, and you feel like he just isn't quick enough to be playing as like a true edge, and he isn't big enough to take on double teams when you play him more inside. But when I watch him, he looks a lot like a John Franklin Myers, who has the versatility to play, like, maybe he's a 5 technique. Maybe you can bounce him out to the edge, especially we talk about like nickel when you don't want to go too light. Like, as a bigger defensive end in that defense, I really like it. So when we first found out he was trying out, I was hyped. I'm not surprised that they are bringing him in, and I think there's a good chance either he makes the team or spends a year on the practice squad, and next year winds up being a really fun piece.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we're looking at, is a practice squad player. But is it good to be a tweener, or is it bad to be a tweener? Because we have seen the Broncos.
Really bad.
It's really bad. That's what I would think. I thought you were saying it in a good way, though.
No.
Because he's way closer to an outside linebacker, and that's where I expect him to be, is that outside linebacker room. We'll see, but I mean, he would have to add 20 pounds to still be a smaller defensive lineman, and I can't imagine he's going to be doing that in the next 2 months heading into training camp. I have to imagine that would completely mess up his game. So I would think a bigger outside linebacker, maybe more of a run stopper first outside linebacker when you need that on the field in obvious situations. Because right now, I mean, you have Nick Bonito, who is really good pass rusher, but doesn't necessarily have that. You don't know if you can count on Baron Browning for an entire season yet. Jonathan Cooper is a guy that you can trust to anchor down in the run game, and so maybe that's kind of his role. And he is a guy where in the USFL, I believe he's had 8.5 sacks over the past 3 years combined. So he's not necessarily, Hank, you said it with the physicality and the run support. That's more of his game than necessarily pure pass rushing.
Yeah, I think wherever they choose to put him will probably dictate how good and how long of a career he has. Because I've seen quote-unquote tweeners have a lot of success, or guys that aren't prototypical size and weight. I mean, one of the best, quote-unquote, they called him a tweener coming out, was Aaron Donald. He's definitely not
that's wild.
prototypical for a defensive tackle, but yet his speed helps him more than any other D tackle in the game, but he's still physical at that size. So I think it's all about how they use this new guy coming in. And I think he probably is more of an outside linebacker, just because if you were primarily 245 and then you got up to 270 to go in and add even more weight. But I don't know, because I don't know. I mean, Shelby Harris was a DN outside linebacker coming in the league, and now he's a big body Shelby.
That's wild.
Going into year 11, having a very successful career as a D tackle. Like, It's happened before.
I didn't realize he was an outside, like a tweener coming into the league.
You should see pictures of him in high school. He's like 220. Like,
wow, that is crazy.
That's the thing
Yeah.
that was like, if you're not good, you're a tweener. Like you're between two positions. As soon as like you're actually on the field, then you're just versatile.
Yeah.
Like if you're bad, you're a tweener. If you're good, you're versatile. It's just that the name changes.
Well, and I mean, maybe this is to switch to a 4-3 or be a little hybrid 4-3, 3-4, because like you said, John Franklin Myers plays way outside sometimes. He did with the Jets. Now he's in a 3-4, going to be more inside, but maybe they are making it so they can be a lot more versatile on defense.
The thing is, I mean, even if they don't like technically change the scheme, they're running a 4-man front 70% of the time, you would think, you know, between like the nickel and a lot of the dime packages. So you just have to like, you have to be built for that. And by bringing in John Franklin Myers and Dondrea Tillman, if he actually makes the team, they've done that. But I mean, Zach Allen, that's also probably where I would play him. Like you want him on the edge in a 4-man front. That's probably where he's at his best. Then you can slide him inside and do like some weird pass rushing things, or, you know, when you get into that 3-4, play him as like a 5 technique. But the closer you get him to the middle of the line of scrimmage, I think the less productive he probably will be.
Okay, really quick. Todd, I can't imagine Baldy changed your mind. In fact, he probably made you feel even more confident in your take that Alvin, good player, but not the right time for the Broncos. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's all about timing. I think even if you look at being able to win Super Bowl 50, I think the free agency 3 years before that with DeMarcus Ware keep the lead.
Yeah, 2. Right before 2014.
Darius Stewart.
TJ Ward.
that same one? That's crazy.
Insane.
I think that was perfect
Emmanuel.
timing. Yes, they were in a great position already as an organization.
It's nuts.
Already winning some games like, hey, okay, let's make a push. Let's go get all the pieces we need and let's fill the roster. And who cares if it crumbles and we can't win for another 7 years after we after we win one. We're going to win one now. And it was perfect timing. I think that's how you do. I think we've seen the Rams do it in recent years where they just load everybody, get everybody together for like 1 or 2 years so they can win Super Bowls. But you have to be in a good position before you can go do that. And I don't think that we're in that position yet. So there's no need to go spend money or get big household names just to have them sit for 2 years and not be themselves when it is time to go make a push.
I totally see that. I just think Sean Payton's someone that will want to make a push every year and not accept like is a little bit of rebuild year, even though like the moves they have made, it seems like it's a rebuild year. I just don't know if Sean is someone to accept that. Now, ultimately, I don't think the Saints are going to want to move on from a guy, especially they're paying Derek Carr a ton of money. They think that they can be competitive in that division. So ultimately, I don't think it happens. But if you were to throw out, you trade a 6th round pick and you pay Alvin 3 years, $36 million, $24 million guaranteed, I would sign up for that. And Henry, you would too?
No, I still don't. I still don't think you need him. I
You
said
switched.
I said no at the beginning.
Switcheroo.
I said no at the beginning.
What?
I said I wouldn't do it.
Am I going crazy?
I don't know.
No, I said at the beginning. I said I probably wouldn't do it. Go back to the very first 30 seconds of this show.
I feel like he switched.
And then the other 40 minutes you just talked about how you would do it, and you...
No.
I'm so caught off guard right now.
I
Wow.
don't think you were listening to me again.
Yeah, you hear. Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah, completely different player.
No, I mean,
That's nuts.
I still think, I mean, it would be fun if you do it, but it's still not a good idea to do it. Like, it
It's
just...
fair. It would be fun though, and I think it's what Baldy said. Man, the name would be fun. It would bring some hype to this season. But I totally see. Probably the responsible thing is save that money, spend it on guys that you currently have right now, and then build for the future. So I see that. It was a fun conversation though to break it down, what it would look like, how much money, and always great to have our guy Baldy on. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Enjoy your hump day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.